Hey, what's up everybody? It's MGM here. In this video, I want to start my series for tabletop RPG companies that I personally recommend. Why am I doing that? Well, this is for those people who may want to leave the overly corporate Hasbro game, but still enjoy games with a big enough company to offer a little extra in support and have a large presence in the tabletop RPG space. If you're someone that saw my last list on games that I recommend over Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons, but perhaps thought something like, that's all good MGM, but I want something a bit larger and established, then this is a list that could be for you. Allow me to first break down what it takes to actually make this list. Each of the 5 companies I have on this list share a few things in common, from my point of view, of course. First, they all have a large presence in the tabletop RPG community. Second, they all feature real artwork by human beings. Third, they each feature at least one classic fantasy style game, of which I will showcase during the video for that company. In the event there's more than one of that style of game, I'll showcase my favorite. Fourth, they have a large community and a great deal of third-party support along with great in-house support such as like adventures, expansions, etc. Finally, they're all companies that do a great job connecting to the community because they're members of it and can make you feel good when you support them. Once more, this is from my perspective, but I feel pretty solid about the choices that I made for this list. Now that being all said and done, today I will be talking about Arcane Library and the game Shadowdark. It only makes sense that this is the first video in this series, and I am by no means the only person out there showing love to Arcane Library and founder Kelsey Dion. I'm a proud backer of the Kickstarter campaign, as my premium hardcover copy here shows, and yeah, that's kind of a flex, and I admit it. But before we get into the game, let me tell you a little bit about Arcane Library. Arcane Library was founded by Kelsey Dion in the year 2017. Before she founded Arcane Library, she was a GM since she was 12 years old and got to play in some pretty cool games. She has also been a teacher, a journalist, and a tech specialist. Her resumes, both in and out of the TTRPG space, are impressive to say the least. There are tons of interviews out there that I would totally recommend you check out of Kelsey talking about the game and about her life before gaming and things like that. Go check out the interviews. There's tons of them on YouTube. Arcane Library had a strong start in 2017 writing D&D adventures. That year, shortly after she founded the company, Kelsey wrote the award-winning adventure, The Secrets of Skyhorn Lighthouse, which became the best-selling adventure of all time in that same year. As a side note, she also did some work on Index Card RPG in the Blood and Snow setting. She has a pretty interesting tabletop RPG history, and I will have to tell you once again, go check out some of the videos and interviews she has on YouTube so you can hear it told in her own words. And I won't give you too much more of an extensive history here, and I hope I've given you enough to really sink your teeth into and bite on and check some stuff out for yourself. I will link her YouTube channel and the Arcane Library website below. Now, when you think of Arcane Library here, what you're really getting is an excellent game in the game of Shadowdark, which I will be talking about here soon, written by a real member of the tabletop RPG community. It has tons of in-house and third-party support, a huge and passionate community behind it, and the person at the head of it all really seems to be a genuinely good person. When you put all this together, you get a really good recipe of a great experience and a company that you can feel really good about supporting. I personally think that Arcane Library's presence in the tabletop RPG community overall is something that is necessary. And I really think if you were like me and followed Shadowdark as it was gaining traction and getting the Kickstarter going, I think that you might agree that it almost seemed predestined to be great, and when it came out, it totally lived up to that reputation. Now, speaking of Shadowdark, let's talk a little bit about the game itself. It was funded on Kickstarter on March 30th, 2023 in spectacular fashion. I mean, it made way more than its stretch goal. I don't remember the exact numbers here, but suffice to say, it was more than just slightly successful in its Kickstarter. I believe at the time it was the most successfully funded game ever on Kickstarter, just to show how talented and successful that Kelsey has been in this community so far. It also became kind of the model of how other tabletop companies utilize Kickstarter and Backer Kit. And once more, when the product came out, both in its physical form and just the game itself, it just did not disappoint. And I think that's something really important because you really feel you're taking a risk with Kickstarter. And this is one of those games that when you got the actual physical copy after backing it, you were more than just a little bit impressed and glad that you did it. At least that was my experience. I heard there was a lot of other people's experiences as well. If you were a person that did that, let me know in the comments below. Now, on top of all that, it went on to sweep all the categories it was nominated for in the 2024 Ennies. I mean, this was a well-deserved win, and I won't deny the fact that I voted for Shadowdark in all of the categories that it was nominated for. And I got to give it a huge congratulations from my small little corner of the internet. Shadowdark could have easily made my first list of games I recommend over Hasbro D&D, but I will have to admit the presence of Arcane Library and just where they're everywhere, both in conventions and on the internet, it had to make this list instead, and I don't regret that choice, but you could easily lump this list in with the other one and have more games to choose from. Shadowdark is a beautiful blend of old school gaming while adding the good rules from modern day gaming and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition to create a game that almost couldn't be anything less than the amazing experience we get with this game. Now, I'm not the only one out here on the YouTubes that openly love this game, but let me take you over to the PDF to show you the things that I really like about Shadowdark from Arcane Library. Alrighty, everybody, here we are at the PDF. Just want to show off that front cover one more time. Pretty awesome stuff. And pointing out once again, one of my favorite features to many OSR games, especially in the rules light category, are when you just have nice charts in the pages in the beginning and end, and Shadowdark does that. So I just want to point that out really fast. I love that about games, and this does it well. Also, just going to stop here really quick. Once again, credit to where it's due. Writer and artists. You may or may not recognize a name or two here. Awesome stuff. But I also want to take the time to remind you guys that Shadowdark does have a free introductory version. So if you go to the website and you don't want to purchase anything right away, you can easily download the free stuff, and it's plenty to play for quite a long time. So check it out. Let me start showing you guys some stuff that I really like about the game itself. But I'm going to just start off by saying the artwork is on point and does a great job of giving us a good feel for what the world of this game implies. And I really, really like that. And I think this really scratches that itch for OSR people. Even grognards that are really into the old school D&D game could really, I think, sink their teeth into something like this and enjoy it, because it really has that flavor. The artwork being just wonderful artwork from different artists, as you can see here. And just the game itself and how it's written is just beautiful in so many ways. On top of that, the layout, something else I believe Shadowdark won an Ennie for, just fantastic in this game. The physical book or the PDF are very easy to navigate, easy to find information, and that's always something that I appreciate. The PDF is bookmarked, and that is always something that I appreciate personally. So if you're getting PDFs out there, guys, you're making PDFs for your games, bookmark it. People really love that. Anyway, let me show you a couple things I really like about this game. All right, first thing I want to show you is the backgrounds. I really like backgrounds in games. I just think they're really cool. Gives you a little bit of maybe a inspiration to come up with fleshing out the background. Like assuming, let's say, if you're looking at this list and you are banished, like what were you banished for? What brought you to that? I mean, just the cues that these backgrounds give for storytelling as your character's backstory and what shaped them is just something I really enjoy. And I think Kelsey did this in a very clever way. Now, something that goes along with the backgrounds, I feel at least, are these titles. Now, this is just a small addition here, and to be honest, it's nothing that really gives anything as far as mechanical value that I can see. However, I just think it's really awesome that each class has different titles they get as they level up, and it also depends on their alignment. And I think this is a fun way to use alignment to kind of just really imply a characteristic of a player instead of leaning on it so much. It's more of an implication, and this does such a cool job doing that. And I think it's just one of those little flavor things that sets this game apart and really gives it its own style and flavor while still remaining familiar. Something else I really appreciate and like, first and foremost, are roll tables. I love OSR rules like games that give you good, well thought out roll tables, and Shadowdark is definitely one of those. And to showcase that in one place, at least here, is the random character generator. I love these things, and I just really enjoy the fact that you could just roll it up. If you're mid game, you want to do it quick, you could take a few scenes while the other players are playing to roll yourself up a quick character. And if you're a flexible role player that's able to do that, it's just a fun way to go about it. Alrighty, now something else I always love in just about any tabletop game that includes magic is a roll to cast system, and that is exactly what we have here. Wizards and priests are separated out a little bit, very much like the old school game where priests use wisdom to cast spells and depend on their deities, while wizards depend on their knowledge, so they use intelligence. And I just think it's really awesome when we can separate these things out, and it's done so simply but definitively here, and I really enjoy that. Also, speaking of magic here, it's very simplified and down to earth per se as far as being able to use it in a game. The tiers of magic, instead of being confusing by calling levels of magic and getting that confused with levels of the character, this separates that out just seamlessly just by changing what it's called. And I love how a very simple change made it so much more clear. Kelsey did a really good job of really streamlining and simplifying things, but making it very definitive in a way that you don't have to really question a lot there. So again, just a great magic system that I really enjoy and is almost verbatim the type of system I play just on my game, no matter what system I'm playing. I also like the fact that the spell lists for wizards and clerics are separated out and are completely different because they're different types of magic. And I think that's super important. When you can just mix and match the same spells, it doesn't really make them feel special. This really does separate these classes out as to being very different, and that's something I very much like about this game. Priests and wizards are not just kind of versions of the same thing. They're very different from their onset, and that's great. I really love that. Now see here, this is page 78, by the way. This has very, very familiar dice rolls. It's a D20. You get your nat 20, you get your nat 1. This also has a D6 decider little mechanic that I think is pretty cool. But this is, again, a great example of mixing the old and new mechanics together. You're going to see familiar rules, whether you're familiar with 5th edition or with the older game of Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to see some really familiar rules here, and maybe even a couple things that'll surprise you that are added in that make things not only easy and streamlined, but a little more fun. So right here on page 84, and also on page 110, where they go into it a little bit deeper, we get to see the very importance of light sources in Shadowdark. Now, in Shadowdark, one of the big draws to it is the fact that player characters cannot see in the dark. There is no such thing as dark vision except for creatures and enemies, basically. So the player characters cannot see in the dark. They need a light source. This is done by using torches and the timers on how long they can last. The basic idea is that a torch lasts for 1 hour of real time. And without those torches, things can happen and things get super creepy and scary, of course. Now, this is just a great mechanic. It's a great idea and really makes light sources and dungeon crawling where there is no light a lot more dangerous and a lot more exciting, I feel. And it also makes it so that players have to plan out their light sources to make sure that they can survive, but also realize that they cannot get around the fact that by having a light source in a dark place, you also stand out. And that's what makes it so dangerous. And I really, really like this idea and want to really put my players through this one a little bit more hardcore the next time I play this system. Back on page 88 here, you can see combat, and this is very familiar and smooth. It does simplify things a little bit as far as I'm concerned, and I love the fact that in combat rules you have morale and you have death having a death timer, and that's a really good idea there. Once again, it gives people the ability to be saved but still be taken out of the fight, and that's actually makes the game a lot more exciting in my opinion. I've had plenty of games where I have similar rules, and the strategy that comes out of people trying to continue to fight while helping their fallen comrade is always really interesting to see how the players go about it, and I really like these rules. Now, when we're talking downtime, I especially want to look at carousing, because this carousing idea was really something that sold the game early on in its climb to its popularity. And I do think it's really cool. The idea in Shadowdark is that gold is experience points, and you have to spend that gold to gain that experience, and carousing is one way you can do that. And it's just a really fun thing that could be done when you're on downtime between adventures. And I really, really, really enjoy this, because this is really codifying something that I feel a lot of us GMs already do, but it connects it to actual part of gameplay, which makes it more likely to be explored by the players, and that's what makes it much more fun. And in true Shadowdark and OSR fashion, you can see that carousing can cost money and have outcomes. So always can do fun stuff. And GMs, feel free to use a drunken night of debauchery as a way to lead into a different adventure. It's really, really a lot of fun. Something I really want to point out here that I like is modes of play. It gives you slightly different rules to add in to create a slightly different atmosphere, or maybe fit more of a tone of a game that you are running. And this is really cool. I mean, this is really well thought out, even though it's very small. I personally feel this really is one of those things that sets it apart from other games. Now, the Gauntlet is similar to things like funnel games. You may have heard of that before, but essentially each player has 2 to 4 very low-level characters that goes through a very deadly scenario, and the last one standing that they each have is the character they'll play the next game. I think this is an amazing way to start a game. It really lends to a lot of stories that could be told right off the bat, and it makes your players really have to be more creative, because they have to take what they get, and sometimes that's a really fun way to start a game. You'd be really surprised how sometimes a player being put into a role they usually wouldn't take really excels in that role, and I have examples of that that's happened in my game numerous times. But gauntlets are super fun, and could even just be run as a one-shot, as a last man standing kind of game, and just a ton of fun. And they include this right here in the rule set, so a big shout out for that. That's just pretty freaking awesome as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you right off the bat, pages 118 all the way through page 185 are just a ton of really good role tables that help with world building, NPC building, adventure building. I mean, there's many, many different tables in here, and I always, always, always love that, and I'm always going to point it out. Great job. These are very, very well thought out role tables too. They're not just a bunch of words thrown together. These are thought out role tables that can give you years and years of combinations. Once more showing how this is one of those games that's very simple and very easy, but gives you enough that you have years of playing just by buying this one book, if that's what you wanted, or PDF. And once more, even if you get the free rules and don't get as many roll tables, there's still plenty of stuff there that you can play for quite a long time. After the roll tables, there's also, and I'm not going to go through everything because I can make this much longer by going everything, but I also want you to check some of this stuff out. I want you to know that the treasure, the monster, and the magic items sections all offer some great stuff, like some great artwork, some great ideas. Showing you some artwork here. Look at this. This is the cover of the standard edition, and just look at that. How creepy awesome is that? Check out these sections to really appreciate the artwork, please. Look at some of this. I love the feel that this artwork gives. I just love the talent that's shown here. Goblins are great. I love the art. Like I was saying, the monsters, the treasure, the magic items, all these sections, they have great art. please enjoy the art. I so much enjoy it. I could probably do an entire video just on the artwork if I really wanted to, if I have the time to. But the artwork, it has great ideas, sets the perfect tone for the type of game this is implying that you play, and really opens up a lot of potential writing opportunities through example here. I really hope this has given you a really good idea what gives Shadowdark its reputation. But before I go on and on and on and on, let's head back to the table for some closing thoughts on this wonderful game and company that it comes from. Hey, now, as you can probably see, once again, I cannot hide my love for Shadowdark. If you're looking for a one-and-done game system with the backing of a really good company and a huge following with a good presence in the tabletop community, look no further than Arcane Library and their game Shadowdark. You really can't go wrong with this one, people, and I really don't think I could say much more that isn't just going to be a continuation of me gushing about how great this game is. But I feel that this game will have the most appeal to people leaving 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but wanting that old school feel. I think this one really bridges a lot of those gaps there and will bring a lot more people to play together than other systems might. That's just my opinion, but I think the blend that they put here is so uniquely brilliant that it has that ability to really bring more people into the gaming community outside of Hasbro. This video here is the first in a 5-part series focusing on some larger companies in the tabletop RPG community. Thanks for checking this one out, and feel free to give it a like if you want to, and stay tuned for my follow-up videos on this and other tabletop RPG related topics. I want to give a huge shout out to Kelsey Dion and her team at Arcane Library and their Discord channel. Another shout out, as always, to my subscribers. They're just under 400 when I recorded this video, and really, I can't tell you how much that is appreciated. I mean, I realize this seems like a pretty small number, but for what I'm doing here, this already exceeded my expectations, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you so much for listening to this crotchety old Gen X TTRPG fan ramble about his favorite hobby. But hey, Shadowdark and Arcane Library do such an excellent job of blending old and new ideas that it fits this channel extremely well. And I have to tell you, the artwork and just the community around it also does that. And it's a game I really appreciate a lot. But it is also a game that I think is a great example of one that you can play for fun first. Thanks for watching, everybody.